Terry Barber here in Sacramento, California. It's early Saturday morning. We're going to go to a morning mass before we get over to the football stadium for the Rosaries for Priests rally. Over 20,000 people are expected to be there, so we're excited about it. And we just thought we'd make a little visit and go to Holy Mass and be prepared for this great event. And all of us are ready to put our sacrifices out for our priests who we love dearly. Remember at church this morning? Many years ago, I came here to do a talk in Sacramento for our Rosary.
You remember this? You remember?
No, not this parish, a different parish. We went to a cemetery to lead. That's where we ended. We walked, prayed the Rosary. And can you tell me which way to go, Anthony?
Go out and make it right.
So anyhow, it just hit me again, and we had a Rosary rally here, and there was about 500 people for it.
And you're gonna make a left.
But the problem was, they didn't have any big speakers. I was it.
You were the big speaker, Terry.
No, that was only about 500 people showed up, so I had forgotten all about it.
I'm an old shield guy. You got a shield guy with you right here?
Yeah, that's right. How'd you know that? Armando? Yeah. You guys know each other?
Oh. St. Michael Shield.
St. Michael Shield.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And from our chapel.
Yeah.
Good to see you. Oh.
Yeah, salts. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
This will help you in your Catholic faith for the rest of your life, because it's going to teach you how to get into conversations with people. I even teach you how to give your personal testimony. And if you got your phone and you don't want to get the book, just take a picture of the do's and don'ts. So it's an important book. It's $10. Ask your parents who know Jesse Romero.
Yeah.
I did something about helping Jesse come back to the Catholic faith. He was joining the Protestant church when I went.
I didn't know that.
And he's my partner on the name.
Yeah, I have my dad. So it used to be a Protestant church, actually. It was.
See, that's what I thought. I mean, here's the picture of the church, right?
Oh yeah.
And the church was full like a Sunday.
Yes.
Night.
Oh yeah.
So keep up, and then like I say, I have a story about the miraculous medal that you're going to hear. It's in my book on Our Lady, but I'll verbally tell you how this medal saved the life of a priest. I'd be honored.
Yeah. Father Calloway just put up.
Father Don, just get me. Let me see if I can grab it real quick.
So you're
Hey, how do I get in here?
one more.
Huh?
Push the door.
Oh, thank you.
That's going to be locked.
Yeah, that'll be locked. That's cool. That's cool. Thanks, man. Hey, bro.
What's up, man?
Father.
How you doing?
Hey,
bro. Nice. Great. I heard they were up here. Yeah. Great.
Lifesight News is here. So if you want any kind of
It's better than having Terry.
Thanks, man.
they're here.
Where's the family?
Mom's one of the sick kids. She's coming.
Can you stay with Ruben for a second?
Nice. Great.
Hey, you ain't getting in the other
man.
65. You're 50,
I'll be
right?
50 next
I
month.
knew that. Lifesight News, Father Don Calloway.
How are you, man? Nice to meet you.
Yeah. Here's a man who loves Our Lady, the Eucharist, and the church. Okay, other than that, he's all right.
Nice phone.
Thank you, Father.
Some techno phone. Looks like you go to war with that
Picture
thing.
with you in front of
Father, you got to get a name tag.
Yeah, let me get you.
All right, and then I got to go with those dudes.
No, you got to go. You got to go. Hey, you like this? Full sheen ahead, baby. That's mine. I want a picture with Father Don. With full, he loves Fulton Sheen. It's one of his favorite books, is World's First Love, I think.
That's right.
If I'm wrong, tell me.
No, you're right. Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
All right, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3. Okay.
All right, full sheen ahead.
I just wolfed down a sandwich.
I can tell, bro.
I smell it. Oh, thanks, man. Okay.
You're right. I like to have a good time. Don't you know that?
For you, Dad.
Hilarious.
Life's too short not to.
Yeah, Tom is the driver. Yeah. He's right there behind you.
So we got him.
Really? Please do.
Save a priest's life. I'll tell you about it.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Cool. I drove you. Do you know Ed Visner?
Yeah,
So Ed
Big
Visner
Ed.
is a
Call
good
him
friend
Big
of
Ed.
mine.
Is he here today?
He should be. I think he's the
Just
one
came
of the
back from Fatima.
Oh, really?
He's in Fatima.
I know he was praying the rosary live from Fatima. It was
Yeah.
so cool. Just a second, sorry. But I drove you to the airport once, I think, after a May procession.
Yes, right here in
Yeah,
Sacramento.
there's
I was
a
just
big
talking
van.
about
Yeah,
it.
that's so funny.
Yeah, I remember that.
Awesome.
You got a good memory.
Oh,
bro.
thank you. You too. Stop it. Okay, and then, so you're going to pray this rosary here. Do you want me to, do you want to just go from rosary to your talk? Do you want me to say anything in between?
Well, since you probably did it here, right?
I did. I'll introduce you here.
Okay.
And then Father Chris is doing the rosary here. And then I'll introduce Terry, and Terry will do his talk, and then we'll go on our break.
Right.
Okay.
And then when we come back, I'm going to introduce you saying the rosary. I know, and then I don't need to introduce you for the talk. You're okay with just going straight into the rosary?
But
Okay.
you know what? That does make a good point. So, is he at the beginning just doing the creed and all this stuff at the beginning, or do we do that every time before?
Good question. I think what do you say?
That
the rosary?
is a
I think
good
we're starting
question.
fresh each time. Because you're leading you're leading one rosary.
Usually, we do it at our holy hour on Thursdays for priests at our chapel. We say the Apostles' Creed once, and we just go into the mysteries.
That makes sense.
That's how we
Everywhere I've ever been in, every time this has been
What do you
done,
think?
it's just done, the creed is done once. And
That's how we do it.
And then you don't end the rosary either
And it's
until you would end.
there's a 20-minute space for each rosary, so you should go at a slow speed, not crawl. Because it doesn't have
Oh dear.
Okay, so then I'll do that, and I'll probably say that too.
Great
Since we
question.
already prayed the creed, the introduction, we'll just go right
So
into
then
it.
we need to tell Father Curtis
Curtis,
not to
Father
end
Curtis,
the
and I need to
rosary.
tell,
So
I need to
he will
tell,
end it at the what?
James too. James is
Okay.
Try to remind me.
James is saying the last rosary. Yeah, James is saying the last rosary. James is saying the last rosary.
Have you ladies heard of Fulton Sheen?
Huh?
Have you heard of Fulton Sheen?
Yes.
We're trying to unite the Catholic Church again through the priesthood by giving away Fulton Sheen's priest retreat.
Yeah.
And we're asking you to give it to your priest. It's free. You just have to scan the QR code.
Okay.
And we hope you do well with that.
What is, one of us will win?
There's no, it's
Oh.
for your priest.
Oh,
it's
for the
free.
priest win.
It's 8 talks. It's Fulton Sheen's priest retreat.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we
Love
hope to
him.
re-evangelize your priest.
Yeah,
He is amazing.
EWTN.
Oh, we've got great priests
I
over at
hear
the Latin
him a lot.
Church.
Did you-
Relevant Radio. They sometimes he speaks there, and then in WTN as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway.
Did you go? I went to St. Stephen's the Martyr
Yes.
parish today,
That's
and that
right.
was a beautiful mass. The
Oh
church
yeah,
is
you were in
beautiful.
front of me. I saw you
Oh.
with the
Oops.
yeah, and,
You there this
yeah.
morning?
Yes,
And
that's
she was
seven.
in front of
I was
you.
there.
Oh. Okay. Well, have you guys heard of Virgin Most Powerful Radio? Well,
I have not.
We're the biggest promoters of Fulton Sheen. We say full Sheen ahead, and you'll normally hear a whistle after that. But we try to, right now we're trying to unify the Catholic Church through the priesthood. The best way to do that is Fulton Sheen. So we're giving away his priest retreat, and we're asking you to give it to your priest. It's free. It's 8 talks, and hopefully it re-evangelizes your priest. Not to say he's not evangelized, but hopefully it re-inspire your priest to be a good priest.
This is, you tell me if I'm all wrong. I'm going to tell people that Fulton Sheen is the antidote for helping priests renew their priesthood.
Yes.
Fair enough?
Fair enough.
I mean, is that? And I'm also going to say that many priests haven't had good formation in the seminary. That's just a fact, folks. And they need to be supplemented.
Right. And he gave priest retreats, right? So yeah.
Priest retreat. I know what.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's for you.
Oh, thanks.
That's a priest retreat.
That's what they do with their phone. They just download it.
Oh,
down.
nice. Everybody's doing that these days.
Yeah,
It's
that's
so
how
funny.
it works now.
I'm like old, man. Like these things.
Dude,
like
I'm a dinosaur.
people are like, they're like swish your card, and I'm
Yeah.
like, what? I'm like,
I
how's
know.
that crap work? I'm like,
Yeah, no. You and I are too.
I don't understand it, man.
Can I give you the good news? We're going at the end of our lives. You're 50 years old. You're not going to do it this life. Life is short. Eternity is forever. Like I'm 65.
Are you?
I'm rounding third base.
Wow.
What?
Yeah.
Head dive in the home.
I'm still on second. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I'm ahead of you in age.
I haven't touched it yet. I'm 49 right now, so. You know what
I knew you were going to do 50.
I mean? You actually look like
Have you guys heard of Fulton Sheen?
Yes.
Okay, we're giving away Fulton Sheen's Priest Retreat for free for all priests.
Oh,
and we're trying to
excellent.
re-evangelize our priests. A lot of priests have bad formation.
That's true.
But we'll remedy that with Fulton Sheen. We say full sheen ahead on Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
Oh, okay. So you're Virgin Most Powerful.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. All right.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Thank you.
community that he founded, the Dominicans, there was a play on the Latin. What is Dominican if you break it down in Latin? Dominicanis. What is that in Latin? It sounds very similar to the dogs of God. They go throughout the world with the veritas, the truth, to get rid of heresy. That's the vision that his mother saw. That was not a dog, of course. That was her son, who would be a champion for the truth and would be given the gift of the rosary. My friends, that is true. This happened. What happened shortly after this? You know, heaven was rejoicing that this was now given to everyone. You didn't need to have PhDs. You didn't need to know many languages. You could be anyone, a child, a worker in the field. You now had portable prayer. You could meditate upon the sacred mysteries anywhere that you went. Who would not be fond of that idea? The devil absolutely hated that this weapon of prayer had been given to the world, put into the hands of everyone, men, women, and children, and he went on the attack. What happened less than a century after St. Dominic was given the rosary? The Black Plague in Europe. We got a lot of wind here today, as you know. So the Black Plague hit Europe, the Black Death. Do you know how many people died in Europe during that time? 1/4 of Europe died during the Black Plague, the Black Death. That is almost indescribable. I mean, think about that today. Can you imagine if 1/4 of the population of Europe or the United States or the country died? That would be horrific. But that really and truly happened. Why did that happen? Well, obviously there is a human reason for it. Yes, nobody would deny that there was a disease, rats were infested and it spread everywhere. Sure, no, nobody denies that. That happened, yes. But there was a spiritual component to this. Don't take my words for it. Centuries later, a third order Dominican named St. Louis de Montfort would write the greatest book of the Rosary ever, The Secret of the Rosary. And he would say in that book that the spiritual aspect of the Black Plague was the devil's way to try and destroy the Rosary, to take it out, because he was mad that it had been given to us. And you know, it almost worked. It almost worked. People stopped praying the Rosary. People were more worried about surviving during the Black Plague, and so, you know, many people stopped doing it, and they were taking care of others. And many of the original documents on the Rosary were burned, because the convents became infested, the libraries, the monasteries. You know, to this day, we don't have one word preserved from St. Dominic, the founder of the Order of Preachers. We don't have one word preserved from the mouth of St. Dominic. Shocking. The devil made a very good attempt at trying to get rid of the rosary and its origins. How tragic was that? So after the Black Plague, when Europe began to be revitalized in its culture and religious communities, an observant reform movement began. So all these communities who lost their original fervor, charism, like Franciscans, Dominicans, and many others, they began to be renewed. And they began to be given rosaries from heaven for their particular community. You had the Franciscan crown rosary that was given in an apparition to a Franciscan novice. You had the Bridgetine rosary given. You had the Seven Sorrows of Mary rosary given. And many others. A Carmelite version of the rosary came into existence. But what about the original one? The father of all rosaries, the Dominican rosary. Well, if you know anything about Dominicans, good ones, they are very academic, very intellectual. Study is almost like a sacrament to them, you know, they're amazing. Super, super smart. Well, many of them were not particularly concerned about revitalizing this form of prayer that their founder had given. They were into their books. There was one particular Dominican named Father Alan de la Roche, now Blessed Alan. He began to receive apparitions from our Lord, from Our Lady, and from St. Dominic. And what were they saying to him? Revitalize the rosary, spread the rosary, meaning the original rosary. But he didn't do it. He was stuck in his books. Not a good idea. Jesus appeared to him on one particular occasion and said this to him. This is powerful stuff. This is, from my memory, pretty much verbatim what our Lord and Savior said to this Dominican priest. He said, "The world is filled with ravenous wolves, and you, unfaithful dog, know not how to bark." Wow. How would you like to be on the receiving end of that rebuke, right? That's serious stuff. Why would Jesus call him an unfaithful dog? Because you're a Dominicanis, you're a son of St. Dominic, and you're not barking. You're stuck in your books. And there's nothing wrong. You got to be intellectually formed. You have to be, yes, of course. But you have to go out and you have to preach. You have to win back souls with the knowledge that you have. And he wasn't doing that. Well, after that rebuke from Jesus, he did. He revitalized the confraternity of the Rosary that St. Dominic himself had founded. And it spread everywhere throughout Europe. Even kings were joining the confraternity of the Rosary. Amazing things were taking place. Now remember, the devil is not going to like this. From the beginning of the Rosary being given to us in the 13th century, there's a play throughout history with God wanting to put the Rosary in our hands and the devil trying to take it out of our hands. So, God renewed the Rosary in Europe through a priest. You ever heard the devil referred to as the ape of God? Basically a monkey. He can't create anything on his own, but he mimics, he mocks, he imitates what God does. Right? If you go to the zoo and you do something behind the glass, the monkey in all likelihood is probably imitating. That's why we call the devil the ape of God. So if God renewed the Rosary through a priest, what would the devil try and do? Try and attack it and go after it and destroy it through a priest. Who was that priest? Less than a century later, who would go on the attack after the Rosary. His name was Father Martin Luther. You know he was a Catholic priest, right? A fallen away Catholic priest. This man had serious issues. The founder of Protestantism. And he went on the attack after the Rosary. To this day, there is in the Library of Jena in Germany, in the library holdings, there is a book on the Rosary and the confraternity that was his, affirmed by all the scientists who study signatures, because it was his handwriting in the margins on almost every page. And what was he saying about the Rosary? What did he call it? A legend. The first historical critic of the Rosary tradition was a Catholic priest, one who would fall away and lead others astray. He would say it was a legend. He would say that it was prayed for no one gaining nothing. What does he mean by that? Well, this is the man who began to slowly get away from core teachings of our faith, like indulgences. Yes, there was abuses, sure. Life is messy. But he began to completely get away from these things. Therefore, he said, it gains nothing, and prayed for no one. What would that refer to? Purgatory. Called it stupid. Literally, in the margins, he called the Rosary stupid, this Catholic priest. How disgraceful for this man to do this. But see, that's how the spirit of the evil one works, to mimic, to mock what God is doing. As I go through this talk, and we're going to divide this talk up into two parts, because I only have a half an hour each, and I'll explain that to you, how he continued to do this, and continues to do it to this day, the ape of God. So during that time, what happened in Europe when this priest got millions of people to leave the one true church founded by Jesus Christ, the Catholic Church? There was a huge gap created. What was God's response? Well, if you don't want it, I'll give it to others. So he sent Our Lady to a little nobody named Juan Diego in Mexico to fill in the gap. In 10 years, to make 10 million Catholics through that miraculous Tilma image. And that was the century when the great missionaries went out to the ends of the earth on their rickety boats to India and to South America, everywhere. And what did they take with them on the high seas? Did they take huge liturgical tomes to read to the natives? No. You'd get there. You don't start that way. What did all of them take with them on those boats? Usually around their waist on their left, or even wearing it around their neck. The Rosary. It was the evangelization tool for the world in the 16th century. You get people to recite the Creed, the Our Father, the Hail Mary, you're in. It's the Bible on a set of beads. It's portable prayer. Anyone can pray this. It's the sacramental that leads to the sacraments. And it worked. Everywhere they went, whether they were Jesuits, Franciscans, Dominicans, Carmelites, whatever they were, they took the Rosary. It was incredible. But back in Europe, there were still difficulties. Christianity was divided now. You had a household divided, with people forming their own churches, and people following Martin Luther, Zwingli, and Calvin, and so many others. And it was a divided house. There was an organization who thought, now would be a good time to attack, to take over, to conquer Christianity. And who was that? Muslims. Ottoman Turks. Wow, interesting. You know, they've been trying to do that for a long time. You know, maybe you're familiar with, and I won't go into all the details, the famous Battle of Lepanto, October 7th, 1571. The battle that saved Western civilization from Islamic takeover. My friends, the only reason that you're not a Muslim today, reading from the Quran and facing towards Mecca when you pray, is because of that battle that happened on October 7th, 1571. That's a fact. All true historians know this. Today people rewrite history and they go all PC and they change everything. But this is the truth. But even before that battle, there were other battles. The Muslims wanted to conquer Rome. You conquer Rome, you destroy Christianity. There was a very famous battle in 1565 in Malta, a little small island south of Italy and Sicily, between Africa and Italy. The Muslims had amassed a fleet of like 30,000 men. Christianity was divided. They thought now's the time to attack.
I won't take the whole details. I'll just give you the cliff notes on this. General, 90 years old, he's dying in a hospital, Catholic hospital, and this doctor who doesn't take payment for anything, he says, Father, I need you. Specifically, there's a who's going to die in 3 years, 3 hours, because he's got gangrene. He's dying, but he needs a priest. And Father says to the doctor, why don't you just call me the Mexican priest? I'm about an hour away. He says, none of the Catholic priests in Mexico want to see this man. I explain why. He killed Catholic priests in the 1920s and 30s as a soldier. He continued to be a Catholic his whole life. When he was a young man, he grabbed a young woman at age 15 and said, "You're my wife now." They had 11 children. She secretly formed those kids as Catholics because he was worried about being a military guy. He could care less about what the kids are doing. All of them. So he's dying. Father comes to the hospital and meets the wife of 67 years and tells Father, yeah, my husband was praying the rosary for my husband for 60-some years. Where's the conversion? what does the priest do? He has a great devotion to Fulton Sheen. And just a quick note, I gave everybody an opportunity to take home for Fulton Sheen's priest retreat to give to your local parish priest as a way to renew him in his priesthood. It's free. Okay. What does Father Murr do? He takes Fulton Sheen's style to go and evangelize people who are away from the church and walks in and he doesn't say anything other than who he is. I can't say what he said because it's foul. This is a man who's been bitter all his life. They called me and said that you're going to be dying because you've got, gangrene on your legs. Look at your legs. You're going to be dead in 3 hours. And I've come to try to help you make your peace with God. Get out of here. I'm not dying. Yeah. And then he said some things I can't repeat on the radio. In the studio. Out here. But he said some mean things to Father. Father had the Blessed Sacrament with him. He covered the Blessed Sacrament with his hands. And this guy was blessed. What does he do? What does he do? He knows what he's doing. In the waiting room, 11 kids and a mom. And he says to the guy, I learned a lot from Jesuits in my training, but they never taught me how to watch somebody die and go to hell. Do you mind if I sit in that green chair and just watch you for the next couple hours and watch you go to hell? And the general looks at him and just coughing and he's gasping for breath. He goes, "You really believe in hell?" He said, "Absolutely. But I don't think I'll just sit there and watch you go to hell." And then he talks to him more about the devil. How the devil for 90 years, dude. When are you ready to give up and tell the devil to go to hell? And that reached this man because then he thought, oh, you might be right. So I won't bore you with all the details because it's a very amazing story of how Father Murr was able to bring this man to ask for baptism. Yes, for baptism. Here's the man. Okay, I want to get married with my wife right now. Fine. They renew their vows in front of the 11 kids who were praying the rosary. He gets confirmed, and then Father gives Holy Communion about 20 minutes before he dies. Now, why am I telling you this story, everybody? It's the rosary. You know how President Bush used to say it's the economy, stupid? Terry! It's the rosary, Terry!
Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Hail Mary.
For another introduction, he's going to give the second half of the talk on the rosary. And, of course, it's my chance to get the wind on it, but it's almost impossible. So, I was talking about the 18th century. We ended with that amazing story of Our Lady of Las Lajas, how that miraculous image appeared on the rock, in Colombia. And if you want to get on a plane and go to Colombia, you can see it yourself. It's a minor basilica, fully approved by the Catholic Church, and science has no explanation for it. Truly extraordinary. I want to go there myself someday to see it, So hopefully it's one of my bucket list items to be able to do before I leave this world. So after that, God, almost literally speaking through a rock to affirm the Rosary tradition, amazing things began to happen back in Europe, where the birthplace of the Rosary happened. Remember, it was in France in the 13th century that Our Lady gave the Rosary to Saint Dominic. So, in France at that time, there was a lot of things going on in the 19th century. And there was a lot of momentum for a particular movement that would end up being called the French Revolution. But before that really took place in concrete things, there was a lot of ideas and people working behind the scenes. God knew what was coming, knew that there were going to be men who would act on behalf of the ape of God, on behalf of the devil, to mock Catholicism and to mock the Blessed Virgin Mary. And so what was God's first strategy? To remind people of the weapon, the Rosary, and to bring it again into full force into their lives. It was at Lourdes, to a little girl named Bernadette Soubirous, Saint Bernadette. At the birthplace of the Rosary, Our Lady came, and what did she do with Bernadette? She prayed the Rosary with Bernadette Soubirous. Now, not all of the parts of the Rosary. Our Lady can't pray the parts where she asks for the forgiveness of sins, like in the Our Father. Our Lady's not a sinner. So she only prayed the parts that she could, that would be theologically accurate, to pray with Bernadette. But Our Lady prayed parts of the Rosary with Bernadette. My friends, you can get no greater endorsement for the Rosary than when the Mother of God herself prays it. And when that happened at Lourdes, a Rosary revolution took place. See, the devil was going to start his own kind of revolution, the French Revolution. It always amazes me today how people celebrate the French Revolution. I'm like, what books have you been reading? Do you know what they did to our, what lunatics take nuns to guillotines? What people confiscate Catholic churches and then claim ownership of them, like the French Revolution did? Because that's what they did. I hope you're aware of this. To this day, in France, we don't own the Catholic churches. Do you remember a few years ago when we all watched Notre Dame burn on TV? Remember that? Yep. And by the way, Notre Dame doesn't mean football. It's Our Lady. Right? A lot of people don't even know that today. They have been so poorly catechized. We all watched that cathedral, Our Lady's Cathedral, burning on TV. And then shortly after that, the government authorities like Macron and others said, we will rebuild it. Who are you to rebuild this? They own it. That's the fruit of the French Revolution, my friends. So if you're one of these people that celebrates this, you need to be rethinking what books you've read and read some better books. The consequences of the French Revolution were horrible for the Catholic Church, for the oldest daughter of the Church, France. But we're still reaping the fruits of the French Revolution, horrific fruits. Well, God knew that was coming, and so he began his own revolution, a Rosary Revolution. So that this apparition of Lourdes, after that, everybody wanted a statue of Our Lady of Lourdes at that time. Everybody wanted a statue of Our Lady of Lourdes. And when it spread around all of Europe, the Rosary, again, was being prayed. People began to pray what was called the family Rosary again. And they got great enthusiasm, great participation. And that would carry over into the next few centuries, because something terrible was going to happen. At that cathedral of Notre Dame, do you know what the leaders of the French Revolution did? Remember, the ape of God. What did they do? They brought a prostitute into the cathedral. I'm not making this up. It's historically verifiable. These wicked men brought a prostitute into Our Lady's Cathedral, had her lie half naked on the altar while they chanted out to her a mockery of the sweet Ave, the angelic salutation that the angel gave to Our Lady. They didn't say, "Hail, full of grace, the Lord is with you," like in the New Testament. No, no, no. Remember the ape of God. They went to her cathedral, Our Lady, put a prostitute on the altar, half naked, while they chanted, "Hail, Goddess, full of reason." they said, over and over and over. A mockery of the Rosary. The rationalists. That's what they did. Wow. How disgusting. How sick to be able to do something like that. But that's what the leaders of the French Revolution did. That's factual. What was God's response to that? You know, these evil men did that. There was a man at the same time in Italy. He had grown up Catholic. His name was Bartolo Longo. And he was a devout little Catholic when he was a little boy, as little Italian kids are right over there. But he went off to college and he left the faith. He wanted to study medicine and law, and he ended up leaving the faith, but he was still searching, and he wanted power. And so he got involved. At that time, it was called Spiritism. Today we would call it New Age. We would call it, you know, getting involved in the occult. Back then it was called Spiritism. He was going to seances, literally. He was, you know, trying to invoke the spirits as though, you know, like we would today, people would get mixed up in things like Ouija boards and tarot cards and all that nonsense. Those are the kind of things similar that he was involved in. To such a degree, and I'm not saying this for dramatic effect, he became an ordained satanic priest. He says that in his works. He was ordained to worship Satan, Bartolo Longo. And what was the fruit of that? Depression, anxiety, hallucinations, thoughts of suicide. He was a disaster. Couldn't even sleep. That was the fruit of his involvement in the occult. And he was thinking about taking his own life. Well, on one occasion, after some time, he had a breakdown. And he went and he found a Catholic priest. Guess what kind of priest it was? A Dominicanis, a dog of God, a Dominican, a son of St. Dominic. And that priest, Father Alberto Redente, told him, Bartolo, your way out of the occult is to pray the Rosary. It's the antidote to get the poison that you put in your soul out. And so he believed him, and he began to pray the Rosary. He fell in love with the Rosary. He even barged into a seance that his friends were attending. And he held up a rosary in front of all of them as they were invoking the spirits of the dead, and he told them all to repent. What did they do? They mocked him. They kicked him out of the seance. He ended up becoming a third order Dominican, and he took the name Brother Rosario. And he helped to rebuild the destroyed town of Pompeii. Remember, destroyed by Vesuvius in like the 1st century sometime? It had come to nothing after that destruction. He rebuilt it, started schools, orphanages, homes for unwed mothers, amazing man of works of mercy. And he began construction on what today is the world's most famous basilica dedicated to the Rosary. It's actually not in Fatima, it's not in Lourdes, it's in Pompeii. The Pontifical Basilica of Our Lady of the Rosary of Pompeii. Extraordinary place, the most beautiful church you've ever seen. It's absolutely exquisite Catholic church, as a Catholic church should look. It's just absolutely amazing. He built that, and then he died. A former satanic priest had a radical conversion through the Rosary, became a third order Dominican, and then now is what? Blessed Bartolo Longo, beatified in 1980 by St. John Paul II. That's extraordinary. If you think that you got problems in your family, if you got kids who are involved in the occult, New Age, weird stuff, you need to be asking that holy man's intercession. He wasn't a priest, he wasn't a bishop, he was a layman. He was a layman. But he knew the power of the Rosary. Because remember, we're talking about a spiritual battle. The devil is going to have his henchmen go into the Cathedral of Our Lady and mock her. God says, I'll raise up a Satanist through the power of the Rosary to show you I'm not playing games. This has power, and you need to be using it. Do you know what happened during his lifetime and after the lifetime of Blessed Bartolo Longo? We had a pope so extraordinary that no pope has compared to him in his promotion of the Rosary. None, and probably none ever will. Leo XIII. That man wrote 11 encyclicals on the Rosary during his pontificate. Nobody even comes close to doing something like that. John Paul II wrote an apostolic letter on the Rosary. Leo XIII wrote 11 encyclicals on the Rosary. He also cranked out about 5 apostolic letters, all kinds of other documents on the Rosary, promoted the Rosary absolutely everywhere, and everything that he did. Extraordinary. He said to the church and to the world, all the ills of society can be healed. The family, the workplace, wars, through the praying of the Rosary. Did people listen? Many of them did not. People actually began to criticize the Rosary again. Can you believe it? To criticize the Rosary again after Our Lady of Lourdes, after God changes the heart of a satanic priest, after he sends us a pope who cranks out 11 encyclicals on the Rosary, priests began to complain about the Rosary again. You believe this? See, this is why we need a Rosary Crusade for priests, so the priests can understand the power of this. And what were these priests? Modernists. Those who would want to turn away from the traditions and say everything's a legend and try and update things with the time and downgrade all of the things that we hold holy and sacred. And that's what they began to do. What was heaven's response? Fine, you didn't listen to me once. I'm going to send her again, our dear mother. And where this time? Fatima, 1917. Where we call that apparition Our Lady of Fatima, and rightly so, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's actually not what she said. How did she identify herself to the children? I am the Lady of the Rosary, is what she said. Technically, that's what that apparition is all about. Extraordinary stuff. The most emphatic thing the three children said that Our Lady emphasized in those apparitions was the praying of the Rosary. It can change history. It can stop wars. And she told them to do it every single day. That's the power of the Rosary. Actually, she told Sister Lucia dos Santos that she needed to learn how to read and write so that she could promote the Rosary for her life. And she lived to be like 100 years old. Right? I always say she got the short end of that stick, right? The other ones are little kids, they're already saints. She lived to be 100. She's like, hello, I was there too. You'll get there, sister, right? So she learned to read and write. She promoted